Kirsty, how are you?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you for being on my last episode of Elevate. So this is season 1, and I'm so lucky that Kirsty, I mean, we met last year, didn't we? In May, for lockdown 1 for Cheltenham Wellbeing Festival. That was the first time I met you online.
Yeah.
And then it's almost been a year. So how has your year been for you?
It's been a wild year. And I've got to say, for me, it's been an incredible year at the same time, because I think that this last year, for so many, it's just been a spiritual awakening. It's been an awakening in every sense of the word. I've learned so much about myself, about life, about what I want to do with my life, about the direction my life was going in. And I, like many, remember the day it all first happened last year. And I took a lot of corporate yoga back then. And I'll never forget the moment I was stood in the high street in St. John's Wood, and I just got email after email after email, office closed, office closed, office closed, office closed, and just being like, oh,
In shock.
do?
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do? And then it's amazing. I think one thing I've really learned about this time is how amazing and resilient as humans are. Like, we are incredible. Like, all of us have just in our own different ways have just adapted and switched and hustled and made it work. And it's also in some ways terrifyingly wonderful how we have just suddenly adapted to this time. And
yeah, this crazy roller coaster.
Yeah.
And honestly, Kirsty, the only way that I can describe people that don't know of you yet, I'm sure they will, like over the past year, I feel like more people have been gravitating towards you.
Yeah.
But for people that don't know who are listening, I feel like you're a light in the dark, because you do, and you do honestly, I love connecting with people who are so open spiritually. And you are so unique, because I feel like you expand to literally the higher power that is. So I mean, you have so many things going on, especially now with all, you know, the energy. You have your Lunar Living, and I read your book, and I know that you have your journal out, and you've just finished your 3rd book. So you literally like firing on all cylinders. Have you found writing really therapeutic for you, and particularly with the journal out now? Like, I know that's doing really well, because people find that, you know, helping them, especially when they're on their own, because lots of people have been dealing with, you know, loneliness and obviously their mental health. And the moon is something that is always there, isn't it? Like, it doesn't even have to speak in a way, it does speak to you, but just to be there. And I feel like you being there, you have a very calming influence. I know you have a lot of energy, but please, can you explain to our listeners about your connection to the moon personally, and how that has expanded your life quite literally to around the globe for you?
I mean, it's beautiful what you're saying. Thank you for saying that. And I realized around this time last year that I could either go into the spiral, or I could be that light. I could draw on my really deep rooted beliefs that even though I do not understand a single thing that's going on in the world right now, and I still don't to this day, sitting here with you now, I still can't make sense of it. My soul knows. My soul knows. There is an infinite part of me. And I'll say this to anyone listening out there. I've said it to most people who've joined me on the Lunar Living, in the Sisterhood, and on the Soul Space classes. We chose to be here on this earth at this time. We all chose to be here to go through the struggles, the hardships, the light that's going to come at the end of this. We chose this. And so in those days that I have struggled, I've had to really connect back to that part of me that's like, even though it makes no sense to human me, there is a part of me right now that knows why this is happening, that knows that I can get through this, that knows that this is going to create something better at the end of it. And I have to believe that, because that's, I guess, a coping mechanism for me that gets me through, of like, I have to believe there's something good for all of us is going to come from this. And I do believe that. And so part of my, I suppose, calling, you'd say, over the last year was to be that sanctuary, to be that space, to bring people together, because exactly as you just said, I wanted people to know that they weren't alone in this time. And so the soul space classes that I know you've been to quite a few.
Yeah, they've helped me tremendously. I cried on the last one.
Yeah, I do get a bit offended if people don't cry. I'm like, come on,
give me the tears.
No. But It's that it went from strength to strength to strength, because I think for a couple of reasons. Number one, it was people coming together and knowing that we're not alone, that there's a community of people out there, and
Mm,
most of all, a community of like-minded people out there who are trying their best to get through this by tapping more into those spiritual and unseen elements. And it's just having that space to be there and know that you're not alone. And then equally on that same note, and to come back to the moon, I think over this time, people have needed something to believe in. They've needed to know that there is something greater at play. And all of us, the least spiritual person in the world has at some point been captivated by the moon in the sky and gone like, oh, look at the moon. Because the moon is that force in the sky that I think just makes us realize we're part of something greater. Like, you cannot look up at the moon in the sky without believing in just even a little bit of magic, just a little glimmer of something stirring within you. There's that beautiful quote, isn't it, that we're all made of stardust?
yeah.
And I think the moon reminds us of that. When we glance at the moon, it tugs on that little part of us, call it soul, source, universe, God, whatever name you give to that part of you, that is as infinite as the moon. Like, the moon's 4.51 billion years old, and there's a part of each one of us that is as old as the moon.
Mm,
And I think when we gaze at the moon, something stirs within us that just reminds us that we're part of something way greater. And the moon has seen everything that's gone on Earth, and has seen that Earth has adapted and got through and evolved and grown, and she's guiding us in the same way now. Like,
yeah.
hang on in there, everyone down there, it's going to be okay. Like, you've got this. And it was incredible to even be able to see in astrology, 2020 in astrology, how it played out, and how you could see it almost playing out in the planets as well, was really incredible. And
Mm,
again, that was a big support for me. And I say it tongue in cheek, that we can blame the moon, we can blame Mercury, we can blame, but again, it just helps me to see that we take our own problems so personally. And especially during 2020, people had problems. Like, they were real. It wasn't just the things we worry about that may come true one day. For many people, those things that we do worry about actually really happened. Job losses, being locked in your house on your own with no one else around you and no support, all of those things actually happened. And we had to kind of really take ourselves through that and find a way through it. And so for me, that being able to turn to astrology, to lunar cycles, to other like-minded people, really helped me to navigate all of those things that I was going through.
And it's also finding the magic there, isn't it?
Yes,
Because it does exist. And I
it
feel
does.
like you've tapped into that. And I feel like you are going to literally rise and rise even more as people learn to know about you. Because you're so right. I'm a person who, I feel like you came into my life because I was asking for like my soul life's purpose. I'm very much open to that and asking for like-minded people. You're right. And to connect, because sometimes you can feel very alone, especially when,
Yes.
not all people are open. Some people are skeptics and some people
Mm,
aren't yet awake to that side of things. But you're right. I do feel that people right now are soul searching, and your soul
yes.
always knows, doesn't it? Like
Always.
the
Always.
whispers, you can hear them, like that little, not the monkey mind, but the whispers are there. And you're like, oh my gosh, I knew that, like my intuition. And it's so much stronger, like thanks to you with the meditation, the yoga, like your lunar living with the new moon. There's for people listening, there's like the new moon classes and then the full moon.
Mm.
There's so many, and it happens every 2 weeks. And I absolutely blame my craziness on the full moon every time, because
You're allowed.
I'm wired. Yeah, there's a full moon coming. I know this is going to go out in April, but there is a full moon coming this weekend, and I'm literally like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just need to ground myself. So like
Yes.
ground my energy and to do yoga, to get outside and be in nature. You're so right, Kirsty, that there is a power so much greater than what we are. And I feel with you right now with lunar living, it's going back to the roots from ancestry. Like, I'd love you to do the DNA journey that I've been watching, like Jamie and Freddie do online, and I watched Roman Kemp and his dad, and I was like fascinated by the history of that. I was never
Yeah,
listened in history class, but to know our ancestry and to know that they were guided by the moon, and for you to go
totally.
back to that now is so powerful, especially needed right now. What
Mm.
do you feel, Kirsty, have you felt that people most need right now, that they, because I know you're inundated with questions all the time, what do you feel is the most popular, common collective that people are searching for and that they come to you with,
It's a
looking
great
for
question.
guidance?
I think exactly as you just pointed out, that sense of purpose, that sense of belonging, both of those two things are very important. And traditionally, so one of my main passions and one of the things that one of my whys about why I do the work that I do is because we've lived a very linear life. And so we live in this linear way where we expect everything to be the same all day, every day. We're the same all day, every day. Even the traditional 9 to 5 working model is, to me, reasonably outdated, because no one's productive 9 till 5, and some people are great in the morning and some people are evening people, but we've tried to jam ourselves into these little boxes of who we should be. And on that same note, we've been taught by society to put a lot of our worth in the job that we do, the home that we own, the money that we earn, the partner that we have. And one of the things that 2020 did was strip a lot of that away. So no matter who you were, and don't get me wrong here, some people lived in much more luxury than others, I'm not going to say it brought us all to the same level, but it affected everybody to the point where a lot of the things that we'd previously placed our sense of self-worth on, going to the important job every day, even for some people like riding on the tube to work every day with all of the briefcase crew, it's like a bit of a, it's a bit of a badge that they wear of like, this is who I am, the city people. Not there's anything wrong in that, but people develop a sense of self-worth from that, and suddenly a lot of that got taken away.
Yeah, their identity.
Yeah, so we had to refine then a sense of, well, who am I? Who am I? And we equally had then a lot of time, and for many people it's their worst nightmare to be at home on their own in silence, not just for a day, but for weeks and months on end. I think has made a lot of people soul search, and a lot of people realize that what we were putting a lot of our happiness into before wasn't actually making us happy. And so it's given us an opportunity to almost reevaluate and come back into that more cyclical way of living, which is what lunar living is all about, that we change every single day. I mean, hour to hour, day to day, week to week, and that's how we're supposed to be. And I think what's been really beautiful about this time for many people is because people have been in their houses and the only thing that they've had every day is to go and walk. And what you'll find is most people will walk the same route every day. Because again, as humans, we like routine. So our routine would normally have come from our working day, but now it comes from we walk subconsciously. Most of us go the same route without knowing we're doing it. But what has been different, I think, is people have suddenly gone, oh, that tree's got blossoms on it. Like, wow. And we've seen the seasons. We've seen that cycle of nature. We've seen the shoots come up. We've seen the seasons turn. We've seen that and witnessed it. It was normally we'd have head down, running from one thing to the next, doing. And I think it's made most people realize that there is a whole world out there that we've disconnected ourselves from, the natural world. Yeah. And that, I think, has been a bit of a reality check for a lot of people. And then equally, and I did it, I realized at the start of the lockdown last time that there'd be days when I would spend 4 to 5 hours on a tube going from class to class.
4 to 5 hours?
Yeah.
A day?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Some days when there was one of those days when I'd be here, there and everywhere.
Wow.
And I thought, I never, ever want to do that again. I never want to do that again. I never want to be too busy to hang out with my friends because I'm spending an hour underground going to a class. Like, it just helped me to really reevaluate the way that I'd been living and hadn't ever even stopped to think about how I was living. Was this, I think, has given us, it's almost like a reset button to sort of reset and come back now into a more cyclical way of living that's in alignment with nature, with seasons, with the natural rhythm and flow of who we are. So I think, to answer your first question in a roundabout way, I think most people right now are just looking for the answers to that age-old question of like, who am I and why am I here?
Yeah. And deep down, we do all know that answer in our soul, don't we? Like, we know, I think it's our emotions that guide us. And when I tune into you, like when I tune into Lunar Living, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel it's it's a very healing process. And you can really, I mean, even if you don't know the answer of the question that you asked at the time, you can just write it down and then subconsciously, you know, go to sleep, wake up, you'll have your answer. The universe is always guiding us. And I feel you're so right, you know, when you go outside and hear the birds, and I'm so much more aware than I ever could be. I don't even think I want to really step on the tube if I don't have to. I'd rather, you know, find another way. And you're so right. I always feel when I tune into you, Kirsty, that your energy is, you know, elsewhere. I feel, obviously, I know you have the connection with Ibiza, however you want to say it, when you wrote your first book, and your energy is there, I feel, because you connect with that freedom. Like, I feel with you, you have your arms extended, you know, if I could paint you, it's like that. And what does that country, or wherever it is that you're drawn to, whoever's listening, what does that bring you? You know, like, does it bring you pure excitement? And why did you go there to write your first book?
It's a great question. And I mean, one of my main values is freedom. One of my main values in life is that that's what I hope for everybody, that we just have this freedom to be who we are, to live the way that we want to live.
Yeah, it's coming, isn't it? More freedom's coming.
It's really coming. It is. And it's to answer your question. So my first book that I wrote, Lunar Living, I'm one of those people that I'm much better last minute. So if you give me 6 months to do something, it's going to take me 6 months. If you give me a week to do it, it's going to take me a week. Like, that's just the way I roll. It's the way that I work. I have to be in flow. So I'm not necessarily a very good plan forwards person. I'm like, let's go with what's going on right now. Because I work with energy so much. I have to be in the energy of what it is before I can, like, really, really feel it and bring it to life for me. So I'd booked a couple of weeks off to write Lunar Living, and I've been playing with it in my head and intuition and feeling into what it'd look like. And then I was in London, where I live, and for about the first week I did nothing, because one of my really, like, shadows is I'm a master procrastinator. I'm brilliant at procrastinating, especially when it's important. And I found all of a sudden this huge imposter syndrome, because the first voice said to me, no one's going to read this book. And I was like, oh my God, no one's going to read it. And then the second voice went, people are going to read this book. People are going to read this book. And I remember this thing coming over me about, I'm writing a book about the moon. Like, people are actually going to read this. And oh my God. And I remember speaking to my best friend and just saying, like, I don't know what I'm going to do, and getting in such a thing. And she just said to me, like, get out of London, just go to Ibiza. Because, as you say, I've always had such a spiritual connection there. I've been going there for many years. And I used to go to Ibiza mainly around the summer solstice, and I'd go to Esvedra and I'd make a wish on the summer solstice, and it would always come true. So Ibiza's always just been a spiritual home to me. And so I went out there and just let Ibiza hold me, just let her hold me. And I wrote the book in just under 2 weeks, because I just then was in that space where I was out of my own environment, out of my own way, and just really connected into the magical energy that's there in Ibiza, the energy of the earth, the energy of the sea. And it really helped me also to put myself in. I purposefully stayed in quite a nice place, because I wanted to feel into that sense of being abundant, of being able to have what I wanted, of not having to struggle, so that I could put myself in that flow space. And even that was a beautiful way to do it, of every time I walked in the hotel, of feeling that beautiful, abundant energy, that I was being supported, held, guided. And so, yeah, Lunar Living was great to write. The journal, that was a really beautiful process, because that came off the back of Lunar Living, of so many people asking about it. And it still makes me smile to think I brought out 2 books in a lockdown. Like, when Lunar Living came out last year, we were like, when the journal comes out, we'll have a big party. And then the journal came out, and again, it was me in my living room on my own, on an Instagram live, being like, yay. But then the crystal book, and again, I've got to be honest, like, the crystal book I found really hard to write, because I had to write it in January of this year. And so we were in the depths of cold, dark winter, locked in our houses.
Yeah, the hardest time, wasn't it?
The hardest time. And my publishers are amazing. But in the end, I had to just go and put my hand on my heart and confess to them and say, like, I'm struggling here. Like, because everything I'd normally gain inspiration from, I'd normally down tools and say to a girlfriend, hey, let's go for lunch. Let's go to Hampstead Heath. Let's take a trip. Because, as we've just discovered, traveling brings me a lot of joy. If I'd have been able to get out of the country and go somewhere, it would have been easier. I couldn't even go down the road because we weren't allowed out. And so I found that to force creativity is very difficult. So to try and sit and force myself to write, I was like, there's just nothing there. And I just want to, again, one of my real passions is honesty. I want to share the only way I can teach what I do is because I share what I experience, what I know. And that was a struggle. And they gave me a little bit of an extension. It's done now. It's finished. It's handed in. It's in for edits. And I'm really
That's
happy
so
with where it's gone in the
exciting.
end. But it helped from being able to take time away. And this leads into a point I make a lot at the moment about, I think I mentioned before, about the whole 9 to 5 thing. When we try and force ourselves into a linear way of working, it doesn't work. And so what I had to do then in the writing process when I got the extension was write until it wasn't there anymore, and then go and follow my feminine. So the feminine seeks pleasure. So I would lay on my sofa and drink a cup of coffee. I'd have a 2 p.m. bath. I'd go and get in the bath in the afternoon. I would go and be outside. And the whole time that voice is in the background saying, you've got a book to write. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? But being able to give myself that time to be in a cyclical way, where some days I'd be suddenly 9 o'clock at night, it'd be like, oh, here it is, here it is, here it is. And it would flow. Some days I wouldn't start work until 2, or I'd start at 7, or it was beautiful to let myself then be in that feminine space that is flow, so that she could then come through versus me sitting at 9 o'clock going, right, got to write. So that was a really powerful lesson for me as well. In sometimes that saying is true, that less is more, that we can do more, achieve more by doing less.
Yeah, so true.
And
The
I
art
found
of
that in the
allowing.
process. Yeah. I found that
And
when
accepting as well, isn't it? Like accepting that struggle. Okay, it's not happening right now. And then opening up. And you're so right. The energy feeds you. Like, I'm craving to fly, like just fly anywhere. Even if it's a UK staycation this year, fine. But I'm like you, I am a free spirit, and I literally love just being, there's so many new places to explore and adventures. And that's my spirit with yours. Like, I feel that. And that's how you get your inspiration. But when you're talking, you know, when it comes to your journal, and especially like your third book, when does your third book come out? Is it
November.
Hopefully this year? Oh my gosh, November. Okay.
Yeah.
I will definitely write a note. And what is it called? The title?
It's about crystals for self-care.
Crystals. I'm surrounded by crystals. Yes.
Beautiful.
Can't wait for that. That's another podcast. Yes. But you're right. A stream of consciousness. So when you are, you know, channeling and facilitating as you do, it just comes, doesn't it? And it just flows. And I love that you said about the feminine, we seek pleasure. And, you know, the feminine power is definitely coming into play more so now than ever, because I do feel, you know, from listening to you over this past year, and honestly, Kirsty, you've helped me above and beyond. I can't express enough how much you've helped me. And I've really looked forward to just seeing you, even though we've never met in person. It's so strange. I'm like, is this person even real? But you know what I mean, in terms of just connecting. And it's just honestly given me so much light and energy and power myself. And I know, along with many of your sisterhood and Lunar Living people and people listening right now, I know you've been on the TV and you've been here, there and everywhere, and there's more to come, I'm sure. But yeah, I just want to ask you, what is your personal message to people right now in 2021? This will go out on the 12th of April. So this is the time when things start to lift a bit more. It's not June 21st yet, and I really hope to God that doesn't change. But what would you say to people listening from you as a personal message to them in 2021 to try and encompass how we're all feeling with these emotions that we're all having right now?
It's an amazing day to come out because that's the Aries New Moon.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and so we've just moved into the astrological new year begins as the sun moves into Aries on the spring equinox, which happened on the 20th of March. But then the Aries New Moon, so the first moon of the lunar astrological year, is on the 12th of April. So this is a moon of real new beginnings. And the one thing I've been saying to a lot of people about this time now is again, it's a shift in perspective. So we are where we are. The reality is what it is. We can either fight against it or we can flow with it. And so what I've been asking people to do is saying we need to see this now as a really powerful opportunity of a couple of months to really begin to start a new direction in life, beginning with the Aries New Moon. We had 2020 that came and knocked every single one of us down onto the floor and showed us and taught us an awful lot about ourselves and about life. And now, rather than open straight back up, in many ways. And I use the word fear, and I use it loosely, but also in that kind of a manner, that I fear then people would have just gone back to what they were doing before. We wouldn't even have given it a second thought. But now we've got this couple of months to check in with, what are you feeling so anxious and scared about, or concerned about, or dreading going back to? Because this is the opportunity that we have now to use that information to realize what we don't want anymore, so we can turn that into, well, okay, what do I want? And we have this little bit of time now to prepare and to make that kind of thing happen, or at least to put the wheels in motion for the rest of the astrological year that will take us through. And so if, for example, you're sitting there going, dreading going back to work, so I'm dreading having spent hours on the tube every day and commute every day, don't. Like, figure out a way that you don't have to do that in your life anymore. Don't just go back to doing that same old, because that's what society said that we did, or that's what you thought your only option was, because the world over the past year has showed us in many ways that our options are unlimited. Like, I heard something amazing the other day that said, I think like now 42% of America remote work now. And if people would have said to their companies even a year ago, I'm working from home on Friday, companies have gone, no, you're not, you've got to be in the office. We've proved that that's not true anymore. And many people are maybe looking forward to getting back to the office because they can't wait to be with co-workers, whatever it is for you. But really feel into, maybe you're feeling anxious again about all the social expectations. Again, how many times do we say yes to things that we don't really want to say yes to? Because we people please, or we feel guilty saying no, or we end up getting drunk at parties because we're so easily influenced that it's all we do. If you're feeling worried about going back to that life, don't. Like, you've got a couple of months now in order to create a new circle of friends, or figure out what it is that you do want to go back into. And so I just say to everyone on every level, and it might just be little changes that you make in your life, but really use this time now to feel into, what do I no longer want to go back to doing? What do I no longer want to accept? What do I no longer want to do? Because again, we have this opportunity now to make such a big shift in life. And we can, of course, just choose to blindly go right back to like 2019 and back to what we were doing. Or we can really take the lessons from the past year. And as you said before, there's no way I'm going to go on a tube again for a long time unless I have to.
Yeah.
That's a change I'm really going to make. I'll walk, or I'll stay local, or see me on Zoom.
Yeah.
One of those.
I hope I can meet you in real life, in real
will, for sure.
person at some point. But yeah, you're
For
so right. It's
sure.
time to create a new path and follow your heart. And for people listening, do what lights you up, like follow your joy, and that will take you to new places that sometimes you don't even need the answer to. Sometimes you just need to be still and let it come to you. It's amazing when you get out of your own way, who comes forward and what opportunities come, because that is where the magic is, isn't it? And that you are that, Kirsty, like you are the magic who have honestly given so many people in their darkest and, you know, most challenging times something and someone to look forward to. So I can't thank you enough. And where can we find you? Where can we find you on your Instagram and your Lunar Living?
Kirsty Gallagher is everything. So kirstygallagher.com is website, Kirsty Gallagher on Insta. I put everything on there. And yeah, we're into, and even people like you and I, like-minded people coming together in this way. I want us all to see this now. We are being given this amazing opportunity to create a whole new world. Like, we are literally being given, the universe right now is dangling the carrot of, you have the power now to create a whole new world. And so it's then for each one of us to listen to that little whisper you spoke about before of intuition that says, you know, follow that little dream. Or and again, what I really pray for people is that people are braver. Because again, as we said earlier, people wouldn't do certain things, like perhaps go and live in a different country or quit their job, because then they were like, well, what about the mortgage, and what about money, and what about this? All of that got taken away from many people in 2020. So I hope that we don't worry about the same things, and instead that we're braver, because we're like, do you know what? The worst thing that I ever imagined could have happened actually did. So now let me like level up and say to the universe, okay, sure, I've got this niggle in my belly or my heart or wherever it is to go live in Ibiza. Let me go do that. I hope that people just won't be as scared anymore. And it's those people following that niggle that are going to create this new world that we have the option to create. And I pray that each one of us finds our truth and our how we want this new world to be, and that we live by that, because the more of us that then create that and say, this is my new world, this is how I'm going to live, the more people then will empower other people to do the same.
Yeah, and I feel like you're
Freedom.
lighting the way. Yes, yes to freedom. Yes, please, universe. And thank you so much for just being you and showing up and sharing, because it takes bravery. It takes so much courage to go out there, to do your first book, and then even to do your second book and your third book and whatever else is to come, Kirsty. I wish you all the luck. And I know your angels will guide you on your path, and you have, you know, your higher consciousness and your higher power guiding you, as well as, you know, so many people out there. So thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing, and everybody definitely get in contact with Kirsty, and I can't wait to meet you. So thank you so much, Kirsty.
Pleasure. Thank you for
Lots of
having
love.
me.
Thank you.